Stop worrying and start living, part 3. Stop worrying and start living, part 3. In the part 1, we have discussed a lot of issues around depression, the fact that issue happen in life, and that issue that happen in life create worry. The worry, if not treated, leads to anxiety, and the anxiety can degenerate into depression. And our focus in this conversation will be around that word depression. If depression is not checked, it can lead to hopelessness. And hopelessness has contributed immensely to suicide issues in our society today. So I will start by reading the anchor verse. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapon of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of stronghold, casting down imagination, and every item that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, and whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. And I started by saying, I think one of the biggest challenges we have as human beings is winning the battle of the mind. One of the biggest challenges we have as human beings is winning the battle of the mind. And Paul captured this very well when he said, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. He captured it very well. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. And he said, the weapon of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of stronghold. Then he said, casting down imagination. I don't know if you have ever wondered, why did he say casting down imagination? Why did he say casting down imagination? And he said, the weapon of our warfare, Paul is basically emphasizing that the war happens in our mind regularly. And that if you can win the war of the mind, we can win the war of life. If you can win the war of the mind, we can win the war of life. There are so many fights in our mind every day. You know, our mind is so powerful, and there is this elephant, temple elephant in India, that is tied when it's small with a very small rope to a wood or a tree. By the time this elephant grows and becomes very big, the same rope is still there. But for many years, he has pulled his leg. He has not been able to pull out when he was young. So the rope is no more in the leg. The rope is now in the mind. The rope is no more in the leg. The rope is now in the mind. And because the rope is now in the mind, it's no more in the leg, but now in the mind, look at what happened. Even when this elephant becomes very big, the elephant is unable to pull away from the rope. Why? The mind now has been tied to the tree. The mind has been tied to the tree. Unfortunately, even though it's now very big, it can pull the tree down and pull the rope away. It doesn't even have the will to do that. The battle is in our mind. And that's why I repeat these scriptures every week. Maybe to open the mind of everyone that will listen to this in future. and those that will listen to it today also. So the real issue we have, our biggest issue is in our mind. Our biggest issue is in our mind. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapon of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imagination, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. So what happened in our life is there are things that the society have told us, dictated to us, that has become a stronghold in our mind, a stronghold in our mind, like the case of that mental rope of the elephant, temple elephant in India. So it has become a challenge because it's now a battle in the mind. And Paul said, cast down that imagination. And he said, every action that exalts itself against. So one of the things the devil do regularly is to ensure, he suggests things to our mind that are against the knowledge of God. The knowledge of who God is, the power of God, the grace of God, the gift of God, the goodness of God. He suggests it to our mind such that you don't even see his goodness again. You only see the current challenge. He said, casting down everything that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Then he said, bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. So there are things that are against the knowledge of God. Those imaginations, he says to cast them down and bring them to the obedience of Christ. The reason why issues happen in life and people move from a level of worry to anxiety, to depression, to hopelessness, and even suicide is actually because the person has not been able to win the battle in the mind. The person has failed in winning the battle at the level of the mind. And if you fail in winning the battle at that level, I'm sorry to say, no amount of prayer will save such an individual. No amount of prayer will save such an individual. Because the person already put himself in a prison in his mind. And that prison of the mind he has put himself, he needs to come out of it first. And what is creating it? The mental chatter, the belief system, as a result of the environment he or she grew up from. As a result of the environment he or she grew up from. Then, what should we then think about? Because your mind must be filled with something. If it's not filled with something, the devil will occupy it with something else. The mind, there must be something in the mind, either by virtue of what you are seeing, or by virtue of what you are hearing, or by virtue of what you are doing. Something was going on in the mind. It can't be blank unless you are sleeping. Whatsoever things are true. What is it that is true about me? Whatsoever things are honest. What is it that is honest? Whatever things are just. Whatsoever things are pure. Not immoral thought, not unholy, unrighteous thought. Whatsoever things are pure. Whatsoever things are lovely. Whatsoever things are of good report. If there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Mental chatter is an internal monologue that you have going on in your head at all times. It begins in the morning when you wake up. Someone call it an unwelcome visitor, unwelcome relative that show up in your house, and you can't throw him out. We do not live all in the same world. We live in different worlds. We live in a matrix. that we have created for ourselves. We live in a matrix. You know, think about this. You have just had a terrible experience. Something happened, and it was because of your action. You were not aware, you didn't have enough information, you took a decision, and the decision backfired. Now, you notice sometimes you begin to blame yourself. Someone call it shooting the second arrow. You already have an arrow shot on you by virtue of the pain you are currently going through because of wrong decision you make. You are now blaming yourself again for it. So it's like you have been shot in the arm, an arrow, and then another arrow is shot and it hit you in the exact place where you were hit before. Why are you shooting the second arrow? The second arrow is brought to you by your mindset, mental chatter, that make you to say you shouldn't have done that. Why did you do that? You even think very well. You are a dumb. You are not, you are foolish. You are not this, you are not that. And you begin to castigate yourself. Bring yourself down. And this makes you feel more guilt, more sadness, not making it better. But you do it all the same. Why? You're not really the one doing it. It's the mindset that has been created. It is called mental chatter. Now, when you do that, that situation that have happened, we create worry and anxiety. And then the worry and anxiety, we create worry. The worry degenerates into anxiety. Anxiety degenerates into depression. Depression leads to hopelessness. And hopelessness can eventually end up in suicide. So we are all very good at shooting the 3rd, 5th, 7th, 10th, 20th arrow at ourselves. We're all good at it. The second arrow is always delivered by means of your mental chatter or mindset. Mental model or the mental chatter is associated with your mental model. Your mental model is the notion you have about the fact that this is the way things work in life. And we all have a mindset. You know, I've emphasized this here. How did we create our mindset as human? Number one, we create our mindset from the environment. The environment. And then the experience of life we have. What is creating this environment and experience? Media. Both the conventional media and social media. What is creating this mindset? School that you attended. What is creating this mindset? The family system, the home you grew up from. What is creating this mindset? The religious organization. What they tell you every week. All this is creating in you a mindset. It's creating in you a mental chatter. And believe it or not, they influence the way you think. They influence the way you talk. They influence the things you do. They influence the places you do. They influence the book you read. They influence the movie you watch. They influence everything about you. For good or for bad. The fact is that they are influencing you. So more often than not, you do things, you are really not the one doing it. It is the mental chatter in you that is making it to happen. Like I said, the mental chatter is created by the mental model. Mental model is the belief system. And the belief system determines your values. And this determines the choices you make. And this determines the actions you take. It is so important for us to understand that most of the time, our thoughts are really not our thoughts. That's why two people can go through the same experience, the same challenge, but they have different outcomes. And I often use this example of lady that had an extra year in ABU and commit suicide, and a guy that have more than 2-3 extra year in OSU or in LASU rather, but did not commit suicide. He did not commit suicide. He did not commit suicide. You have a mental model for everything in your life. Like the essence of life. How to get a job. How to live a good life. What is the definition of a good life? What do you do with your time? Who do you marry? How do you raise your kids? The problem is not that you have that mental model that create the mental chatter. The problem is that you are not even aware, many are not aware that, and immediately you know that there are things influencing your thinking. Then you will query your thinking before you take decision. You won't take decision on the spur of the moment. You will take decision based on how you feel. You will take decision based on fact and information available. You take decision based on fact and information available. So, to change your mental model, don't ask the question whether the model, what the model is telling you to do is right or wrong. You need to ask the right question. Ask the question around, what is the impact of this on me right now, on my life right now? What is the impact of this on me right now, on my life right now? So, for example, something has happened. I'm thinking a certain way. It's making me feel horrible, terrible, even bringing suicidal thoughts. That's when you will know that, okay, maybe this is not the way I should be thinking at this time. Maybe this is not the way I should be thinking at this time. What is the impact? What is the impact of that thought on you? That's where you know if that thought is right or if that thought is wrong. The more you believe in your mental model, the more the evidence you see about the way the world works. The more you see the way the world works. And how do you know if you have the right mindset, mentality, mental model? Just check the outcome. Just check the outcome. It's a simple one. Just check the outcome. We use this mental model or mindset to build around ourselves a silos that cannot be easily broken. So to change the model, don't ask the question if it's right or wrong, but rather ask if the model is better, make you better right now. Based on this current situation, how do you feel? So to change your mental model, you need to first of all know that it is not right. It is wrong. It's making you to live in worry and anxiety. This is why we worry and live in anxiety. It's the real issue in our life. It's not the real problem we are facing. It's the way we interpret it. It's the way we interpret it. Please remember, you always have a choice of the emotional domain you are going to occupy in different circumstances and situations. You always have a choice. Are you going to be in the emotional domain of worry and anxiety? Or emotional domain of, this might be happening for my good. You know, when I look at the scriptures and I look at the way we live our life, it's obvious that we don't see scriptures, or many believers don't see scripture as the manual for life. Because when you look at it, it said, and we know that all things work together for good. Now, if I bring a mental model, if I build a mental charter, if I build a mindset that see every challenge with a possibility that it can work together for my good. And I guess that's the mindset that Joseph had. That's the mindset that Joseph had. That's the mindset that Joseph had. That made him to be able. That made him to be able to endure the pain from his brothers. The pain from his brothers. You know, if you look at the way the brother treated him, you will notice that Joseph must have had a different mindset that made him to not just forgive them, he interpreted it rightly. So what I'm saying tonight is that the reason why we worry and many are not living is the way we interpret circumstances and situations. And that interpretation is based on our mental charter, created by our mental model, created by the environment we have grew up. And I'm saying you need to begin to challenge your mind. The way you feel about this situation, right? Anytime anything happens, no matter how bad it is, and you feel bad about it, you feel terrible, you feel horrible, always remind yourself that is aggravated by your mental chatter. You know, I want you to think about something right now. Think about something. Can you think of something that happened to you? And I want you to share this when we have conversation afterward, the discussion at the end. Is there something in your life that happened in the past? That when that thing happened, it's like the whole world has come to an end. This is terrible. This is horrible. This is bad. Think about that thing right now. That when it happened, you already passed judgment on it. This is terrible. This is horrible. This is bad. But in retrospect, when you check it, you realize, thank God that issue happened. But when it was happening, it was like, this is the worst thing that can happen to me. Let me give you an example. As a student, I wanted to do medicine at secondary school. I chased medicine from Ilorin to Unilag to UI. But today, when I look back, I always thank God I didn't study medicine. I always tell people that I see God. God stopped it. Every effort I made in Ilorin, in UI, Unilag, he stopped it himself. Now, but when it was happening, it was like, this is the worst thing. With all my prayer, with all my faith, with all my effort, nothing seems to be working, all these things. Even those that didn't score better than me, Jan, were getting it. And I didn't get it. But in retrospect, we only understand it by and by. What am I saying in essence? When any bad thing happens to you, you judge too quickly. You judge too quickly. You judge so quickly, you pass that judgment, and you know what happened? It makes you feel bad. This is the worst thing that can happen to me. I shouldn't have married this lady. Why did I even give back to this child? Why do I even have this kind of parent? What kind of sibling is this? What kind of school is this? What kind of course is this? What kind of this? What kind of that? We pass judgment too quickly. But in retrospect, you realize that circumstance you find yourself has created some other opportunity that you probably would not have had if you did not have that problem. What am I saying today? Don't pass judgment quickly. Assess the situation. Always remind yourself, anytime you have emotional trauma, you are depressed, you are sad, you are worried, there is something in your head that is painting a picture that this is a terrible situation. You shouldn't have done this. You are the worst kind of human being on the earth, and making you feel so terrible about yourself. Like I said earlier, you always have a choice of the emotional state you occupy in different situations. Maybe you will say, this is working together for my good, or, oh, this is the worst thing that happened to me in this life. You determine that. You determine that. You determine that. Remember the choice. The choice is based on your values. And your value is based on your belief system, which is your mental charter. The choice is based on your values, and your value is your belief system, which is based on your mental charter. You face such a junction in your life several times a day where something happened and you feel you should not have done that, but you judge based on that belief system. Remember, from the bad situation, it creates worry. Worry creates anxiety. Anxiety leads to depression. Depression, if not checked, can lead to hopelessness. And hopelessness eventually can lead to suicide. So when you face those instances every day, you choose a wrong emotional state of frustration, of worry, of anxiety, of depression, without even knowing that it was a choice you made because of your mental charter. It was a choice you made because of your mental charter. Every time you have an unpleasant situation in your life and it persists, please note that you are using one or more of your mental model and mental charter, and it's not serving you well, making you more terrible. The moment you identify the mental model, make a change. That's why the scriptures say, be ye transformed by renewal of your mind. If you're going to change your mindset in this life, you need to imbibe new set of belief and values. Now, before we close today, what are the factors that predispose to depression? Who are the people who are at risk of depression? Who are those that predispose? Some people will say that you cannot be born again Christian and be depressed. But we all know that this is not true. There are many born again Christians that are depressed, sad, unhappy. Some pastors even commit suicide. We had a couple in 2019, pastors who commit suicide. You know what I mean to get to suicide? The person has gotten to a level of hopelessness, as in there's no way out of this. That's not true. That's never true. That there's no way. That's not true. There's always a way out. The fact you are not seeing it is a sign that there is something about your knowledge that is limited, which is why I always say that ignorance is a gift. So there are many Christians who commit suicide. They commit suicide because they refuse to accept that they are in depression and go for help. Instead of accepting they are in depression and go for help, they don't believe they are in depression. And remember, even though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. Remember, the weapon of our warfare are not carnal. They are mighty through God to the pulling down of stronghold, casting down imagination. And they have not cast down that imagination. So the devil exposed to them those that are against the knowledge of God. And they imbibe it and become depressed. The refusal to accept the fact is because they have attributed it to evil spirit somewhere and therefore go for deliverance. Depression is mostly connected to chemical imbalances in our brain. And this is what makes everyone and anyone to be at risk. Although some scientists have said that it can also be genetic in nature, particularly those suffering from protracted nature of this kind of situation, can be genetic in nature. Particularly if it's prolonged and unresolved. Those prolonged and unresolved make those kind of people to be devoid of hope. You know what? When there is no hope, energy to live dies. When there is no hope, energy to live dies. When there is no hope, the energy to live dies. The energy to live dies. The energy to live begins to wane. This is what leads to suicide. That's why a person should not get to the point of hopelessness. That's why Christian must be Christian indeed. The reason why many Christians become hopeless is because many people really and truly don't believe in the Bible. Because if they believe in the Bible and see it as manual for life, what you do in time of hopelessness is actually to go and find hope in the Bible. What has the scripture said? What has God said? And you renew your mind. You should not even get to hopelessness. Because when hopelessness sets in, the person loses energy. Hopelessness makes you to lock up yourself in a dungeon where everything is dark, because you will not be able to see anything good in yourself. And I'll begin giving an example later on. We'll be discussing what is often called thought disorder. Thought disorder. And these are the complex situation of this kind of, when you allow bad thought to go through your mind. The person does not even see anything good in life again. Suicide is the way they try to get out of that state of mind. Some fall into depression because of medication. Some get into depression because of divorce. Some get into depression because of sexual assault, because of abuse. Some because of post-traumatic disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Maybe someone has lost someone, they has go through a terrible situation, a terrible time, and they get to do what is called post-traumatic disorder. Some is even after giving back to children. The post-traumatic disorder leads to depression because of the stressful and traumatic experience that they have gone through. Depression is a cruel disease that can affect anyone. It is easy to know when the symptoms begin to slide into the black hole of depression, where the symptoms spiral and feed off each other and increasing the severity. The person gets to a point that is like, this is the end of my life. As in, there's nothing else good about me. As in, you just don't see, and it's so sad. You know, our awareness in life is like a flashlight. Do you know you can flash that light at what you want? Let me ask you a question. The way you are sitting now, are you feeling the pain of you sitting on that chair or that sofa? Now, you were not feeling the pressure before. Now that I've spoken, you are feeling the pressure. You know what I've done? I've turned your flashlight to the pressure between your buttocks and the chair you are sitting on. That is the way life is. Instead of turning your flashlight on the negative, you can turn it on the positive. Because if you keep it on the negative, ladies and gentlemen, it will lead to depression. If you keep it on, so you must now find a way to catch yourself, to ensure that, look, you can be in continuous state of happiness. And it's a choice you must make based on the predominant thought you allow in your mind. Depression is a cruel disease. It can affect anyone and everyone. Remember our anchor scripture You know, I keep repeating this scripture and it's deliberate. I'm trying to paint the picture that these things are in the Bible. Only that people don't see it because of the way we choose to read the Bible. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. The weapon of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of stronghold, casting down imagination. Imagine the wrong thing, cast it down. Imagining the wrong thing, cast it down. Imagining the wrong thing, cast it down. Casting down imagination. Then everything, you know, when you are depressed, the thing you are thinking about is actually against the knowledge of God. When you are depressed, when you are worried, when you are in anxiety, the thing you are thinking about that brings that depression is actually against the knowledge of God. And he said, casting down imagination, casting down everything that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. And that thing that is making you to be depressed is actually against the knowledge of God. The scripture already said this thing will work together for your good. But you are not looking at that. You are looking at, this thing will, my life is finished. I'm done for. I will die. There's no hope. You know, the devil brings this thought. And Paul said, the most important battle in life is the battle of the mind. The most important battle in life is the battle of the mind. Just check it out and ask yourself. He said, anytime you have a negative thought, anytime you're worried, you're depressed, check that thought. He said, casting down imagination and everything. He said, look, casting down and every high thing that exalts itself against what is causing the depression is that thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. That means I need to go and find the knowledge of God and counter it. No wonder Jesus said, you just use the word. You just won the battle of the mind because all his temptations were in the mind. He won the battle of the mind, casting down imagination and every thing that exalts itself against. You see what is causing challenge in your life that making you to be depressed, sad? It's a thought against the knowledge of God. It's a thought against the knowledge of God. It's a thought against the knowledge. So if you are conscious of that scripture, you will realize, oh, this is a thought against the knowledge of God. Okay, how do I confront this now? Which scripture am I going to use? Any depressive thought, worry thought, anxiety thought, depression thought, hopelessness thought, suicidal thought, they are all against the knowledge of God. Immediately you become conscious of that. So what is the knowledge of God about the situation? What has God said about the situation? Do you know, Paul said you should bring that thought into captivity, as in cage it, put it in prison so that it won't come out again. Put it in prison so that it won't come out again. You know? Put it in prison so it won't come out again. He said, finally, what should you think about? What shall the thoughts that should occupy your mind? Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any praise, think on these things. Think on these things. What do you think about? What are the thoughts going on in your mind? What are the thoughts going on in your mind? Think on these things. Depressed people have a challenge with high tendency for procrastination. The fact that you lose energy to do any meaningful thing when you are in depression makes it easy for you to procrastinate. Remember, one of the very significant evidence of depression is lack of energy to do even the most important things in your life. You have exams, you won't be able to read. You have assignments, you won't be able to do it. Important thing, you are not able to do it. Why? There is no energy. So that person will keep procrastinating. If someone keep procrastinating, you might have to check. Maybe he lack energy. What is making that energy to be devoid, not to be present? Maybe there's a problem in the mind. Another reason for procrastination by depressed people is because they feel they are stuck in life. They feel they are stuck in life. The problem of depression, of the depressed rather, is not laziness. It's not laziness that leads to them procrastinating. It's because of lack of motivation, lack of energy. They feel they are stuck in life. This is not a time to beat or batter yourself, or to beat or batter them rather, which is why we should be careful. You know, sometimes we judge too easily. We judge too easily. I saying, I don't know why we judge so too easily. You know, there are some girls, they come to church. I'm painting a picture for you now. Maybe you're a leader in that church and you work with the youth, maybe. Or you don't even work with the youth. But you see these ladies, these girls, they're in their teenage years, but their skirts are always short. And immediately you see them, the first thing you do is to castigate them. Why are they wearing this? Can't their parents see it? But you know, if you get close to those girls and ask them, why are you wearing this shirt? You say, number one, that shirt was bought for her 4 years ago, 3 years ago. She's a teenager. She's growing so fast. There's no money to buy another one. She has to wear what she has. Instead of asking to know exactly and maybe give them money to buy, you know what happened? We castigate them. We judge too quickly. We judge too quickly. It's a bad thing, sincerely. You know what the Bible talking about? Holier than thou. Many Christians just judge. Not to say what they have done is right, but maybe they can't help it. There's no option. Maybe you could have helped if you care and ask questions. Maybe you could have helped if you care and ask questions. Maybe. But we judge too quickly. Someone is procrastinating, we say he's lazy, and we judge him. We're not asking questions to know maybe he's going through a terrible time, tough time. Maybe. I was talking to a lady recently who was doing a master's program, and she said she could not, she was just procrastinating everything. After like 30 minutes of talking to her, of course, I could spot the fact that she was in depression. The next was a therapy session to be able to get out of that depressive state. She sent me a picture today. She has graduated because she was preparing for her final exam. And here she was rather, and she will not read. She will not do her assignment. She will not do her practical. She will not do, and she's almost failing. We just judge too quickly. So it's not a time to beat and batter them with your words as a superior, but rather to check the reason for the procrastination and support them to be cured from depression. This call for concern and checking up with people around you who are always procrastinating to see if they are probably in depression. People often associate procrastination with laziness, and this is not necessarily true because some procrastination are caused by lack of energy, lack of motivation, orchestrated by depression. Lack of energy. And you know, the interesting thing about this topic, all of us will have our fair share. All of us. Because things will not always go your way. Things will always happen. Someone said, it's not about if tsunami will happen to you in life, it's when the tsunami happens. There will be issues of life that will happen. There's nothing we can do about it. We are not in charge. We are not in control. We are not. And don't try to be in control, but rather be in an emotional state that help you interpret the challenge you face correctly and not to blame yourself, castigate yourself. and make yourself feel bad for what you're doing. People who are depressed suffer from procrastination because they feel they are stuck where they are. You know, it's like you're in a dark room. You can't see anything as in. You need to understand. They can't see nothing on the horizon. That's why they need a help. They need a therapist. They need someone to make them to begin to see all the good thing in their life. You need to consciously shift them in that direction. And immediately they get to that direction, they realize, so why am I like this? Because remember, the devil bring up a high thing, a thought that is high, that exalts itself against what the Bible has said about them, what God has said about them, the knowledge of God about them. So at the end of the day, what happened? They think they are stuck. You know, it's not a funny mindset. You feel you can't, it's like there is no way out. It's like, I'm finished. That's not true. That's not true. He's never finished. It's not true. He's never finished. He's never finished. That's not true. But the devil makes you to think that you are done for. Someone said the devil is a bad devil. The devil is a bad devil because of the way, you know, he's an ancient man. He has used some strategies that have worked. And I tell you, devil know exactly what to do. He know exactly what to do. Those things he has done that have worked. How he has made believer become terrible, miserable, sad. He knows exactly what to do and how to do it. And do you know what? He's winning in the life of many believers. He's winning. He's winning. He's making people to feel terrible being a Christian. Some even think Christianity is a scam. Some think Jesus is not real. I think you need to see the kind of thought going on in the mind of people. Why? Is the devil? Is the devil? He has given them a thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Against the knowledge of God. And bringing every thought to the obedience of Christ. Against the knowledge of God. So people who are depressed suffer from procrastination because they feel they are stuck where they are hopeless and cannot see anything on the horizon. They are hopeless and cannot see anything on the horizon. Remember that depression is a disease. It's not a weakness. So ensure you understand the reason for procrastination before you tongue lash people and abuse them or accuse them of being lazy or avoiding work. They do not see any point in doing anything or doing what they're supposed to do because of the impact of the hopelessness on them. The major issue with depressed people is lack of energy to be able to do what they need to do. And this is very important for those around them to observe. This lack of energy affects their work, it affects their career, it affects their calling, it affects their family, it affects their relationship, it affects their study, it affects almost every area of their lives. When you see that sign in anybody, 9 out of 10 times it's in depression, my brother. It's in depression. So if someone is having generalized procrastination in different areas of his life, that person is most likely going to be suffering from procrastination, from depression rather. It's most likely going to suffer from depression. A person in this state of mind needs to get into their routine and try to do what they need to do even when there's no motivation to do it. They need someone around them as an accountability partner because they need to get out of that mind. The routine will be a lot easier if it's done alongside with others, particularly in a team at work, such a person needs people around them all the time to serve as motivation to help them to get something done. The first thing is to get, you need to first of all, he said, look at what Paul said again. He said, even though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. He said, the weapon of our warfare are not carnal. They are mighty through God to the pulling down of stronghold. And this weapon of our warfare is in our mind. Casting down imagination. Look at this. And every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Then he said, bringing into captivity every thought. Now, why did he say you should bring it into captivity? So it won't come back. Cage it. Cage it. Cage it. Cage it. As I round up this evening, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, whatsoever things are praiseworthy, whatsoever things are virtuous, think on these things. Now that you know these things, happy shall you be if you do them. Oh, a number of people have gone out because of network. All right, let me hear from you, Kemi. Hello, Kemi. Hello? Hello, Kemi, are you there? All
Hello, good evening.
Kemi, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm glad I was able to join today. I've learned a lot about depression and how to handle it.
Yes.
And that story you spoke about, that final year students, I think is something I can relate with. Because of I've been saying I'm tired. And now I can actually relate to what it actually is. Happening. Because I'm beginning to lose energy. I'm just tired of the whole thing because I don't know, I'm just tired. I can repeat that word like 10 times in a day. Like I'm tired.
Wow.
So a few days ago, I said to myself that I really need to evaluate my mental health, because the tiredness is not just, I don't think the tiredness is because of what I'm doing, you know? So it's just me trying to figure out how to finish my research and all of that. So I'm beginning to see this night is giving me a more it's giving me courage. It's giving me hope to know that the way I'm feeling is just my emotions, the chemicals and all of that causing the depression.
Yes.
Or the mild depression, as I would like to. Yeah. So it's something I really am taking note of and being mindful so that it won't consume me. Yes. Because you know, when you know your problem, then finding a solution is
easy. Yeah. You know, one thing we must know is that any emotional state we are in is a choice we have made. We can come out of that. It's a choice. So you can begin to now focus on how far you have gone, what you have done. You are 90% complete. It's just 10% to go. So if I've done this much, I've done enough now. Even some people I did not even get to this level. They started Some are even frustrated. Some have not done half of what I've done. Despite my shortcoming, see what I've achieved in my life. Look, immediately you turn the flashlight on those positive. And you keep focusing on the positive. You begin to regain that energy.
Exactly.
You need to consciously do it. As in, you need to remember your good times from primary school to secondary school to university to your master program. Thinking of the things, the great time in your life, the good time in your life, the things you have going for you that many do not have, that should make you to be grateful. To be grateful. Before you know, you now realize that why am I even thinking like this? If I'm not even reasonable the way I'm thinking. If I've thought well, I shouldn't even bring this thought. But that's the devil. That's the devil. It makes us to turn our flashlight on the negative. And it paints a picture as if there's nothing good in your life. As if you are so useless.
As if you have not done anything, you know.
And do you know what? We bought into that lies. We bought into the lies.
Yes.
Regularly buy into the lies. He ensured that you're in the dark room, you don't see anything good again. The only thing you see is the current condition, current challenge, current situation, current circumstances, current problem. There's nothing good about you, and that is a big lie. It's not true.
So you mentioned something about finding a way out.
Yes.
And also you mentioned that that there's always a solution.
Yes.
That in every situation, there's always a solution. Yes. So I know that I'm supposed to go home already in this May and all that, like go be home to my job by June. And I'm sure that if I go back to Nigeria now, I would have enough motivation. I know I'll see my family, I'll be around loved ones and all that. So writing, the plan is actually to write from home.
After you've done the research work with the equipment.
Yes, after I've finished the lab work, yes. Yeah. So I see that every time also I'm feeling down, I see that as not like a way of escape, like
you look forward to it. You look forward to it.
Yes, I look forward to it, and that gives me more motivation. So I just want to confirm that if that is also all right. It's not as if
you need to find something to make you happy. Just get out of that mind. Think of something else that brings that joy and gladness rather than bringing that downcasted emotional state.
Yes, yes, that's exactly the point. I want something that would make me happy, that would change my mood and all that. Yes, that would yes. Okay. Thank you very much for tonight.
All right.
I'm very blessed. Thank you.
Kashi, are you there tonight? Let's hear from you. Hello, Kashi. Yes. Go ahead. Hello, Kashi. Hello? We can't hear you. Are you speaking? Wow. I guess it must be your device. I can see that you are speaking. Your mic is showing that sound is coming in, but we can't hear the sound here at all. I don't know what the problem is. Hello, Kachi. Maybe you should check your device. Yes, I think we are hearing you now.
All right.
Hello?
You can hear me now, B?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Right. I learned a lot in the sense of I learned I need to focus more on things that are the positive things, because focusing on those positive things are what will avoid depression and also I also learned I also learned on the need to just in general, I just learned on focusing on things that are positive and all things are pure, what is like, so that you avoid all those.
Yeah.
That's just in general. That's summary.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other people, I guess they have network issue. We need to close now. Thank you very much, everyone, for being able to join tonight. See you next week. This will get to about part 10. So we'll have part 4 next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.